What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be driving a BMW M2 CS from the F87 generation. I've driven one of these in manual form a while back. I compared it to a 718 Cayman GT4 and came away really impressed in that comparison. Even against one of the cream of the crop six-figure sports cars like the GT4, the M2 CS held its own in the excitement department. It was just such a lively and fun car to drive and made the GT4 almost feel a bit sterile. But right now we are in a DCT dual clutch equipped M2 CS. The owner Derek mentioned that the only mods he's done to this car are a mid pipe and a down pipe, so that opens up the engine a little bit more, gives it a little bit more power, and obviously it opens up the sound. So a few specs about the M2 CS: it is based on the F87 generation platform M2. Compared to the M2 competition, this has a lot more carbon on the exterior: carbon roof, carbon hood, the wing mirror caps, the rear diffuser, the rear spoiler, and the front splitter, all exposed carbon. It looks fantastic. On the interior here, we have a special CS logo on the Alcantara across the dash, more Alcantara and carbon on the doors. It's a really nice place to be, and it definitely feels a little bit more special than a regular M2 or M2 CS. We also have this body colored stitching on the inside rim of the steering wheel. All these little details just give the car that little bit of an edge, and it makes you feel like you're in something special. We're still powered by the S55 engine. It's a 3-liter twin turbocharged straight 6, but it's been tuned up to 444 horsepower over the standard M2 competition's 405. And for torque, we have 406 pound-feet. Despite all the carbon and the weight savings measures, this car weighs about the same as the M2 comp, a little over 3,500 pounds. And I think with the DCT, it might be closer to 3,600. We have electric power steering, but this car has Michelin Cup 2 tires, so hopefully that will improve the steering feel compared to the relatively numb steering feel of the M2 competition and base M2. Also, for the first time in M2 history, this came with adaptive dampers, so Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. We also have adjustable steering weight settings, adjustable DCT shift speed. There's quite a bit of adjustment. We have our M1 and M2 buttons, so you can customize these to whatever combination of settings you want. But with that out of the way, let's just drive this thing and see if it's as good as I remember, even though this has the dual clutch. Engine in Sport Plus for maximum throttle response. Suspension, we're going to set to the middle sport setting because we're on a damp road today. Steering we'll have in Sport Plus, and for shift speed we'll have it at the maximum setting. These cars still cost close to $100,000. I think prices have dipped a bit, and for a DCT model you're looking at closer to maybe 80 to 85, but still that's a good chunk of change more than an M2 competition, which is around 55. So is it worth it? Let's find out. First gear. Very traction limited on Cup 2s on a damp road. That's to be expected. Wow, this thing just wants to get up and go. There is no messing around. The engine, there's some lag down low, but once you open it up, oh, properly quick in a straight line. Feels like well over 450 horsepower. Throttle response is a little touchy in Sport Plus. Takes some getting used to. Oh yeah, it's a lively car. It wants to dance. Steering is actually pretty good. I think that's largely due to these Cup 2 tires. The extra grip from these tires improves the steering feel compared to, let's say, a PS4S. Wow, the straight line performance doesn't feel that far off from the new M2 base model. Wow, honestly the steering feel in this car is really good. The suspension does a decent job in sport mode, little unsettled, but overall a big improvement over the M2 competition and base M2. First gear pull. Oh wow, yeah. It's so easy to overwhelm the rear tires with this much power. All right, while we're stopped, let's try putting this into comfort mode for the suspension. Sport is just a little too firm. Well damped, but just a little bit too firm. Oh wow, the engine is just so peaky because there's lag down low and then it just explodes at the top end. And it gets the rear end of this car unsettled very easily. It's hard to even go full throttle at times because rear traction, that's the limiting factor with this car. Obviously on a racetrack, probably less of an issue once these Cup 2s are up to temperature. Oh, wow. Great steering feel. M2 CS. I'm definitely enjoying this car even more than I did the first time I drove that manual example. It really is something special. It's just the best word I can use to describe this driving experience is energetic. It's just always ready to go. There's no waiting around other than the turbo lag, but again, you get past around 3,000 RPM on boost and this thing just explodes. The difference in engine character between this and the base F87 M2, just huge. That base N55 engine just it makes torque everywhere, but there's not a particularly exciting power delivery. And it makes this car a bit of a challenge to drive because it is so traction limited, being front engine rear wheel drive. Oh, the brakes are really good. No complaints there. Nice linear, progressive pedal feel, and the steering feel. Really, really good for an EPS. Oh yeah, it'll go sideways all right. Just brush the throttle mid-corner and this thing will send you sideways. Lots of grip mid-corner, but you gotta be really patient with your throttle application coming out of the corner. This thing is not forgiving to on-off switch throttle application. It'll bite you big time. Oh, wow. Let me put it this way. I just got out of a 981 generation GT4 and a 991.1 generation GT3. Two phenomenal driver's cars. But this M2 CS, it really makes me work even harder than those two cars. Because this car has a very peaky power band with the turbos, because it's traction limited, and because it's a little bit heavier and not as forgiving to mistakes. And that's what makes this car potentially more exciting to drive. I feel like I'm more pumped up right now than I was even driving that GT3. Now, that's saying something, it really is. I think at $100,000 or more, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow, right? Because you can get an M2 competition with a manual or DCT, your choice, for around $55,000. And if that doesn't satisfy you, spend, let's say 15, maybe 20 grand on mods, and you can probably make it feel as good as this M2 CS. After all, the M2 CS is just a tarted up M2 competition. So for, let's say, 70 to 75 grand, you can have pretty much the same driving experience, I would think. But if you can pick this car up for 80 grand, that's when all of a sudden things start to get really, really enticing. Because let's not forget about the fact that it's a rare car. It has a special interior and exterior look. You feel like you're in something collectible. And that definitely has a price tag on it. And I think for me, that price tag for this car as a whole, with everything that it offers out of the box, is around $80,000. It feels like an 80 grand driving experience. I think the prices have started to come down to that level. So that being said, guys, a big thank you to Derek for letting me experience his DCT M2 CS. Let me know what you think about this car. How does it stack up against the M2 competition for those of you who have driven both? Do you think it's worth the extra money? And do you think this car really is a competitor to the Porsche GT cars of the world? Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.